Chapter 3. The Fearful Mystery. What is it which gleams through me and smites my heart without wounding it? I am both a shudder and a glow, a shudder in so far as I am unlike it, a glow in so far as I am I-like. Saint Augustine. Here, we are already in the third chapter of this book, and I still have not defined what it means to be holy. I wish I could postpone the task even further. The difficulties involved in my defining holiness are vast. There is so much to holiness that is so foreign to us that the task seems almost impossible. There is a very real sense in which the word holy is a foreign word. But even when we run up against foreign words, there is always the hope that a foreign language dictionary can rescue us by providing a clear translation. The problem we face, however, is that the word holy is a foreign to all languages. No dictionary is adequate to the task. Our problem with the definition is made more difficult by the fact that in the Bible, the word holy is used in more than one way. There is a sense in which the Bible uses holy in a way that is very closely related to God's goodness. It has been customary to define holy as purity, free from every stain, wholly, perfect, and immaculate in every detail. Purity is the first word most of us think of when we hear the word holy. To be sure, the Bible does use the word this way, but the idea of purity or moral perfection is at the best the secondary meaning of the term in the Bible. When the seraphim sang their song, they were saying far more than God was purity, purity, purity. The primary meaning of holy is separate. It comes from an ancient word that meant to cut or to separate. To translate this basic meaning into contemporary language would be to use the phrase "a cut apart". Perhaps even more accurate would be the phrase "a cut above something". When we find a garment or another piece of merchandise that is outstanding, that has a superior excellence, we use the expression that it is "a cut above the rest". Every writer needs an editor. Editors are wonderful people. They are more adept than magicians. They can take an awkward manuscript and make it smooth, an obscure piece of writing, and make it clear. They hide all the author's spelling errors and mistakes in grammar by fixing them before the public ever sees them. They remain the unheralded heroes of publishing who do their work with uncommon valor. But let's face it, sometimes they can be downright nasty. My editor gets nasty about big words. Big words. He exacted a promise from me that I would try to write this book without using any big words or scholarly language. That's like telling the emperor that he doesn't have any clothes on. I use big words to disguise my ignorance. Big words are great for that. If I can use a word that nobody understands, chances are people will think that at least I understand what I am talking about, even if they don't. I'm stuck. I have to use big word. Nuts to the editor. Get ready now for a big abstract theological word. Really? Ready? Transcendence. Yikes. I just counted transcendence has a 13 letters, but transgression has 13 letters, and everybody knows what that means. In fact, I just spelled it with 14 letters, but my editor fixed it. The word transcendence means literary, to climb across. It is defined as exceeding usual limits. To transcend is to rise above something, to go above and beyond a certain limit. When we speak of the transcendence of God, we are talking about that sense in which God is above and beyond us. It tries to get at His supreme and absolute greatness. The word is used to describe God's relationship to the world. He is higher than the world. He has absolute power over the world. The world has no power over him. Transcendence describes God in his consuming majesty. He exalted loftiness. It points to the infinite distance that separates him from every creature. He is an infinite cut above everything else. When the Bible calls God holy, It means primarily that God is transcendently separate. He is so far above and beyond as that he seems almost totally foreign to us. To be holy is to be other, to be different in a special way. The same basic meaning is used when the word holy is applied to earthly things, like carefully at the following list of things that the Bible speaks of as holy. Example: holy ground, holy Sabbath, holy place, holy linen coat, holy house, holy tithe, holy censers, holy bread, holy seed, holy covenant, holy place, holy convocation, holy nation, holy anointing oil, holy jubilee, holy field, holy water, holy ark, holy city, holy word, holy ones, holy of holies. This list is by no means exhaustive. It serves to show us that the word holy is applied to all sorts of things besides God. In every case, the word holy is used to express something other than a moral or ethical quality. The things that are holy are things that are set apart, separated from the rest. They have been consecrated, separated from the commonplace unto the Lord and to his service. None of these things in the list is in itself. To become holy, they must first be consecrated or sanctified by God. God alone is holy in himself. Only God can sanctify something else. Only God can put the touch on something that changes it from the commonplace to something special, different, and apart. Notice how the Old Testament regards things that have been made holy. Whatever is holy carries a peculiar character. It has been separated from the common use. It may not be touched, it may not be eaten, it may not be used for common matters. It is special. Where does purity come in? We are so accustomed to equating holiness with purity or ethical perfection that we look for the idea when the word holy appears. When things are made holy, when they are consecrated, they are set apart into purity. They are to be used in pure way. They are to reflect purity as well as simply apartness. Purity is not excluded from the idea of the holy. It is contained within it, but the point we must remember is that the idea of the holy is never exhausted by idea of purity. It includes purity, but is much more than that. It is purity and transcendence. It is a transcendent purity. When we use the word holy to describe God, we face another problem. We often describe God by compiling a list of qualities or characteristics that we call attributes. We say that God is spirit, that he knows everything, that he is loving, just, merciful, gracious, and so on. The tendency is to add the idea of the holy to this long list of attributes as one attribute among many. But when the word holy is applied to God, it does not signify one single attribute. On the contrary, God is called holy in the general sense. The word is used as synonym for his deity. That is, the word holy calls attention to all that God is. It reminds us that his love is a holy love, his justice is a holy justice, his mercy is holy mercy, his knowledge is holy knowledge, his spirit is Holy Spirit. We have seen that the term holy calls attention to the transcendence of God, the sense in which he is above and beyond the word. We have also seen that God can reach down and consecrate special things in the world and make them holy. His touch on the common makes the common suddenly uncommon. Again, we say that nothing in this world is holy in itself. Only God can make something holy. Only God can consecrate. When we call things holy that are not holy, we commit the sin of idolatry. This is the grievous error of idolatry, giving to the common things, to the respect, awe, worship, and adoration that belong only to God. To worship the creature instead of the creator is the essence of idolatry. In antiquity, idol makers were involved in the lucrative business. Some idols were made from wood, others from stone, and some from precious metals. The idol maker went to the marketplace and purchased the best materials and then went to his workshop to apply his craft. He worked long hours shaping images from the material using his best tools and instruments. When he was finished, he swept up the floor of his workshop and carefully put his tools away in a cupboard. He then got down on his knees and started to talk to the idol he had just fashioned. Imagine talking to the dumb piece of wood or stone. The thing couldn't possibly hear what was being said. It could offer no reply. It could render no assistance. It has deaf, dumb, mute, and impotent. Yet people would ascribe holy power and worship to these objects. Some idolaters were a bit more sophisticated. They didn't worship images of stone or totem poles. They began to worship the sun or the moon or even an abstract idea. But the sun is also a creature. This is nothing transcendent and holy about the moon. These things are all part of nature. They are all created. They may be impressive, but they do not go above and beyond the creaturely. They are not holy. To worship an idol involves calling something holy that is not holy. Remember, only God can consecrate. When a minister consecrates a marriage or communion wafer, it is understood that he is merely proclaiming a reality that God has already consecrated. This is an authorized use of human consecration. When a human being tries to consecrate what God has never consecrated, it is not a genuine act of consecration. It is an act of desecration. It is an act of idolatry. Early in the century, a German scholar made an unusual and interesting study of the holy. The man's name is Rudolf Otto. Otto attempted to study the holy in a scientific way. He examined how people from different cultures and nations behave. They then encounter something, then regard as holy. He explored the human feelings people have when they meet the holy. The first important discovery Otto made was that the people have a difficult time describing the holy. Otto noticed that although certain things could be said about the holy, there always remained an element that defied explanation. It was not that this element was irrational. No, it was more super rational, above the limits of our minds. There was something extra about man's experience with the holy that could not be put into words. This is what Otto called a kind of plus. The plus is that part of the experience of the holy that people grope for words to express. It is the spiritual element that defies adequate description. Otto coined a special term for the holy. He called it the mysterium tremendum. A simple translation of the concept is the awful mystery. Otto described it like this: the feeling of it may at times come sweeping like a gentle tide, pervading the mind with the tranquil mood of deepest worship, was passed over into a more set and lasting attitude of the soul, continuing as it were, thrilling, vibrant, and resonant, until at last it dies away and the soul resumes its profane, non-religious mood of everyday experience. It may burst in sudden eruption up from the depths of the soul with spasms and convulsions, or lead to the strangest excitements, to intoxicated frenzy, to the transport and to ecstasy, to has its wild and demonic forms can sink to an almost grisly horror and shuddering. It has its crude, barbaric antecedents and early manifestations, and again it may be developed into something beautiful and pure and glorious. It may become the bush trembling and speechless humility of the creature, in the presence of whom or what, in the presence of which is a mystery inexpressible and above all creatures. Rodolph Otto, The Idea of the Holy, Oxford University Press, 1950. Page 12 to 13. Otto spoke of the tremendum awfulness because of the fear of holy provokes in us. The holy fills us with a kind of dread. We use expressions like "my blood ran icy cold" or "my flesh crept." We think of the Negro spiritual, "were you there when they crucified my Lord?" The refrain of the song says, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. We tend to have mixed feelings about the holy. There is a sense in which we are at the same time attracted to it and repulsed by it. Something draws us toward it, while at the same time we want to run away from it. We can't seem to decide which way we want it. Part of us yearns for the holy, while part of us despises it. We can't live with it, and we can't live without. Our attitude toward the holy is close to our attitude toward ghost stories and horror movies. Children beg their parents to tell them ghost stories until they get so frightened that they beg them to stop. I hate to take my wife to scary movies. She loves to see them until she sees them, or I should say, doesn't see them. We go through the same pattern each time. First, she clutches my arm and digs her fingernails into my flesh. The only relief I get is when she removes her hand from my arm so she can use both hands to cover her eyes. The next step is when she leaves her seat and goes to the rear of the theater where she can stand with her back against a solid wall. There she can be sure nothing is going to jump out from behind her and grab her. The final step is when she leaves the theater altogether and seeks refuge in the lobby. Yet she tells me that she loves to go to such movies. There must be a theological illustration in there somewhere. Perhaps the clearest example of the strange phenomenon of people's mixed feelings to the holy comes from the word of radio. Before the advent of television, the radio program was zenith of home entertainment. We were treated to daily operas sponsored by soap companies, thus gays as Maperkins. Other soap companies gave us Our Gal Sunday, Our Man's Family, Dr. Brent, Stella Dallas, Just Plain Bill, Portia Faces Life, Mary Noble, Backstage Wife, Lorenzo Jones and his wife Belle, and hosts of others. The evening programs were given to action and adventure, The Lone Ranger, Superman, Tennessee Jed, Hop Harrigan, and so on. My favorites were the mystery program Gangbusters, Mr. Keen, Tracer of Lost Persons, Johnny Dollar, Insurance Investigator, The Shadow, and Suspense. The scary program of all scary programs began with the eerie sound of a creaking door opening. It sounded like a fingernail scratching a blackboard. It evoked the image in my head of an ancient musty vault behind open. With the sound of the creaking door came to the sonorous voice of the announcer saying, "Inner Sanctum." What is so scary about the words inner sanctum? What do the words mean? Inner sanctum simply means within the holy. Nothing is more dreadful to a man, more terrifying to mind than to be brought within the holy. Here we begin to tremble as we are brought into presence of the mysterious tremendum. The mysterious character of holy God is contained in the Latin word Augustus. The early Christians had problems giving this title to Caesar. To the Christian, no man was worthy of the title Augustus. Only God could properly be called the Augustus one. To be August is to be awe-inspiring or awful. In the ultimate sense, only God is awful. In his study of the human experience of holy, Otto discovered that the clearest sensation that a human being has when he experiences the holy is an overpowering and overwhelming sense of creatureliness. That is when we are aware of the presence of God. We become most aware of ourselves as creatures. When we meet the Absolute, we know immediately that we are not absolute. When we meet the Infinite, we become acutely conscious that we are finite. When we meet the Eternal, we know we are temporal. To meet God is a powerful study. In contrast, our contrast with the other is overwhelming. We think of the prophet Jeremiah, of his complaint to God. Whelming. O Lord, you decided me. O Lord, you deceived me, and I was deceived. You overpowered me and prevailed. Jeremiah 20, verse 7, NIV. Here it sounds like Jeremiah was afflicted by a bad cause of stuttering. Normally, the Bible is brief in its expressions, having kind of economy of language. Jeremiah breaks the rule by taking the time to state the utterly obvious. He says, "You deceived me, and I was deceived." The last phrase is waste of words. Of course, Jeremiah was deceived. If God deceived him, how could he possibly be anything but deceived? If God overpowered him, how could he be anything else but overwhelmed? But maybe Jeremiah just wanted to make sure that God understood him when he registered his complaint. Perhaps he was using the Hebrew method of repetition to indicate emphasis. Jeremiah was deceived and overpowered. He was feeling helpless, impotent before the absolute power of God. In this moment, Jeremiah was supremely aware of his own creatureliness. Being reminded that we are creatures is not always a pleasant thing. The words of Satan's original temptation are hard to erase from our minds. Ye shall be as gods. This ghastly lie of Satan is one lie we would dearly love to be able to believe. If we could be as gods, we would be immortal, infallible, and irresistible. We would have a host of other powers that we presently do not and cannot process. Death often frightens us. When we see another person die, we are reminded that we are also mortal, that someday death will come to us. It is a thought we try to push from our minds. We are uncomfortable when another's death rud- rudely introduces into our lives and reminds us of what we face at some unknown future date. Death reminds us that we are creatures, yet as fearsome as death is, it is nothing compared with meeting a holy God. When we encounter him, the totality of our creatureless the totality of our creatureliness breaks upon us and shatters the myth that we have believed about ourselves, that we are demigods, junior grade deities who will try to live forever. As mortal creatures, we are exposed to all sorts of fears. We are anxious people given to phobias. Some people are afraid of cats, others of snakes, and still others of crowded places or lofty heights. These phobias gnaw at us and disturb our inner peace. There is a special kind of phobia from which we all suffer. This is called xenophobia. Xenophobia is a fear, sometimes a hatred of strangers or foreigners or anything that is strange or foreign. God is the ultimate object of xenophobia. He is the ultimate stranger. He is the ultimate foreigner. He is the holy. He is holy and we are not. We fear God because He is holy. Our fear is not the fear of the Lord. Our fear is not the fear of the Lord the Bible enjoins. It is a servile fear, a fear born of dread. God is too great for us. He is too awesome. He makes difficult demands on us. He is the mysterious stranger who threatens our security. In his presence, we quake and tremble. Meeting him personally may be our greatest trauma.